Hi, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to my weekly podcast about spirituality, love, death, devotion, and waking up while living in a messy world. The Satsang with Shambhavi podcast is recorded live each week with students of our nonprofit community, Jayakula. For more information and to find out about attending a satsang, visit jayakula.org. Thanks for listening. Much love to you, wherever and however you are. So tonight I thought I'd talk about 3 things that we really need to have any kind of significant realization. And the first one kind of underlays the second 2. In other words, you have to have the first one in order to get through the second 2. And that's patience. We don't have patience in our culture today because we can't tolerate not being good at things quickly. Our pride is so much and our fragility is so much that when we encounter something that's difficult to learn or requires us to go through stages where we're not good at something, we often don't start, or we start and if we don't get results right away, we quit. So this is a special kind of impatience that we suffer from. Of course, there's other kinds of impatience. Some are just due to being too pitta. Pitta creates impatience in people. But generally, pitta impatience is a little different because then you'll just work really, really hard to try to get through something faster rather than giving up. Right? So it's a different kind of impatience. You don't give things their due time. You try to push through with effort. Another kind of impatience that we experience is we just simply don't understand what this process is in the beginning. We think that, I learned something from my teacher, I have some techniques, and now I'll just apply them and I'll get results. We don't have the insight yet to understand that our sadhana is collaborative, that we're collaborating with a mandala of circumstances, and that we're just one factor in that mandala. It's not entirely up to us when we get results, or what results we get. And so as you go along, when you become a more mature practitioner, then you understand the process more. If you're sincere and you really desire some greater realization, then you realize that you just have to go along with life. You can't force things. And that periods when nothing seems to be happening are normal. And that it's just going to take the time that it takes. Patience, if we don't have it in the beginning, and if we don't give up because we're impatient for some of the reasons I just said, then eventually we will develop more patience through just learning about how this process works, learning about it firsthand through our own experience. But there really is no realization without patience. And I guess patience is kind of a code word for letting nature take its time, however much time it takes, and recognizing our part is just a part. It isn't the whole thing. And if something doesn't go the way we want it to, or how fast we want it to go, it isn't anybody's fault. Basically, if we are practicing sincerely and doing our best, that's all we can do. We really can't do anything but that. And then however long it takes, it takes. If you do practice every day for many years, especially if you're doing, an hour or more of practice every day, which most of my students are, so many things will happen. It will feel so different from one day to the next. And you're going to have, as some of you already know, periods of time when things are exciting, periods of time when they're boring, periods of time when they're smooth and spacious, periods of time when you feel frustrated and cramped. I mean, you're just going to go through every possible thing that a person could go through. One of the things that you're going to encounter is loneliness. Loneliness is inherent in all of our conditions until we're a little bit more realized, because we feel separate. So loneliness is inherent in the experience of separation. It doesn't matter how many friends we have, or how loved we feel. There is a quantity or a degree or a quality of loneliness that's just inherent in what we call a navamala. A navamala means our root ignorance, our feeling that we're separate from others and from the world itself. So we have what could be called ordinary loneliness, which is ameliorated by just hanging out with people. Right. Ordinary loneliness and the kind of loneliness we need to encounter in our practice in order to grow are related, but they're not quite the same. In order to grow spiritually, we have to be able to touch that root loneliness. We have to be able to feel it. And we have to be able to tolerate it. We have to be patient with it. So the problem with ordinary loneliness is that we can get into circumstances, and most of us do, where we are simply distracting ourselves from our loneliness with activities that are not nourishing. We'll do anything to numb out or hang out or keep ourselves busy so that we don't have to feel that root loneliness. And we can sort of fritter away a whole life doing this, and many people do. Right. The problem is that feeling our root loneliness is an aspect of the desire that moves us toward realization. We desire to feel more connected, all of us. We desire to feel more integrated into life. We desire to feel our continuity with life in many, many different ways. But if we don't feel that root loneliness, then our desire is going to be weak. And we will only go so far until we're willing to feel it. That more existential kind of loneliness that's not just about going out and seeing a friend. Right. The kind of loneliness we realize is there even when we've done everything to try to hang out with people or something like that. The kind of loneliness that's still there when we think, I'll go out in nature, but then we're lonely in nature. Right. The kind of loneliness that just is there because we feel separate from God. And it's extremely painful. All loneliness is painful. Right? It's probably the most painful human experience. So the way that we, in a sense, can cultivate loneliness is by only engaging in activities that are dharmic. So not hanging out with people just because there's somebody there and it will make you forget your loneliness. Not doing some activity just because there's somebody there and you'll have something to do and it'll distract you from your loneliness. So the only way that we can both feel it and also be humans is when we hang out with people and do things that are related to our values and what we really care about. Right? Not when we just do stuff because there's something to do, which is what a lot of people do. Right? I had a friend in college who would just go out on a date with anybody who asked her. I'd be like, why are you doing that? Well, he asked me. This is the kind of thing that we shouldn't do if we want to have real spiritual growth. Right? So we should hang out with loving people and other people that are somehow related to the path that we're on. People we're giving service to, co-workers, etc. But we should not keep busy relationships, right? Or keep busy activities. We should not be getting attached to activities that are merely distractions. Because it's important to let ourselves, in a sense, marinate in that existential loneliness. It draws us toward greater intimacy with everything. Right? It lets us feel more compassion for other people if we feel our root loneliness. Right? We realize everyone's in that condition, and it can help us to feel more compassionate. So we have to be able to hang out in that. And then that causes us to really, in a sense, desperately seek to do something about that. Now, when I was growing up, I was very, very lonely. And until I started doing practice, I was very, very lonely. And I guess because of past life stuff, from the moment I was aware of that loneliness, I was also aware that there was nothing in my environment that was going to make it better. I was aware that there wasn't like a person or a situation that was going to make this go away. So that was very, very lucky for me. And although I experienced many, 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 many days, weeks, months of searing loneliness, I think I really actually do know a lot about loneliness and how painful it is. But I also know how much it honed my perception of what it is that really would satisfy that, right? And I knew it wasn't anything ordinary. And then when I did have more realization, it went away. Because I met the self, and that's the only thing that is really going to make that existential loneliness go away. But if we don't even know it's there, or we do sort of know it's there, but we're running away, distracting ourselves with all kinds of projects and silly things that don't actually need to happen, then we really are delaying our realization. And then the third thing that we need to be able to tolerate is chaos, feeling uncertain, feeling destabilized, feeling shaky, not knowing what's going on, just being kind of uncomfortable because we don't know what's happening with us, or things feel unfamiliar, or we used to have it all together, but now we don't, and we don't really know who we are anymore. We have to be able to tolerate that. In other words, not just grin and bear it, but not run away from it. Just sit through it. Again, this relates to patience, right? Being able to sit through times of relative chaos in how we feel about ourselves or the world or other people, and just let things take their course and shake out and rearrange and recalibrate. And you don't know how long that could take. It could take 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, 3 lifetimes. You don't really know. And again, that's part of the destabilized situation, because it's every time it happens, it's different. It happens after a while, again, when you become more mature as a practitioner. You're going to go through times like that. And you have to be willing to go through them. If you try to scramble back to a sense of more coherency in your life, you've lost that opportunity. So again, there's just a certain kind of sitting through things and continuing to do your practice and trying to be open and not labeling things, not trying to put things back together again too quickly, just seeing what this is about, seeing what growth is inherent in that relative chaos. Well, obviously, sitting through loneliness and sitting through chaos both take a lot of patience. Notice that I'm saying patience and not grinning and bearing it. Like there's this kind of a flavor to patience that's modest and quiet and more open. It's not a powering through a horrible situation by clenching your fist and sitting there with your teeth clenched and your fists clenched. There's just a general going along with what's happening, recognizing that it's part of a larger picture, a larger movement in your life. You don't know what it's going to bring you, but it will bring something. What I found in my path, and I don't know if this is going to be how things go for you guys or not, but I'm sure everybody has a somewhat different experience, was that when I first started practicing, there was just all these spectacular things happening for like the first 10 years. And then everything just quieted down, and there were periods when I wasn't sure what was happening. And I've learned that there's sort of like these underground flows that are going along and sort of pushing through things and kind of happening regardless. And that things are changing in this more geologic kind of a way, right? And they could speed up again too. I don't know what's going to happen. But you have to be able to sort of sit through all these different rhythms and all these different textures and flows, having confidence that whatever's happening is what needs to be happening. And that also gives you a lot of patience when you have that confidence in the process. So I guess all the spectacular stuff that happened the first 10 years did give me a lot of confidence. Sometimes if I'm going through something a bit too geological, I'll think back on something. I'll go, oh yeah, right, okay. This is okay.